Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped off the transport ship and looked at the alien world before her. The planet Kepler 442c stretched out under a purple sky, with strange trees that looked like twisted metal reaching toward two small suns. She had dreamed of this moment for years. Finally, she was standing on another world. Elena was a scientist who studied alien life. She had spent 10 years learning about creatures from other planets, but she had never seen any in person. Now she was here with her team to study the most dangerous predators anyone had ever found. The creatures were called Tekvar. They were like wolves, but much bigger and much smarter. They stood as tall as a house and had thick fur that changed colors. Their bones were made of something like crystal, and they could sense electricity in the air. The few videos that scouts had taken showed them hunting in perfect teams and solving problems that even smart Earth animals could not solve. Elena's team had built a small research station on a hill. The station had strong walls and energy shields to keep them safe. Everyone knew the Tekvar were watching them, but the creatures stayed away from the human base. "They're out there," said Dr. Marcus Webb, Elena's partner. He pointed to the dark forest below. "I can see their heat signatures on the scanner. At least 20 of them." Elena looked through her telescope. She could see movement in the shadows between the trees. Sometimes a pair of glowing eyes would appear for a moment before disappearing again. The Tekvar were studying them just as much as the humans were studying the Tekvar. "They're curious," Elena said. "That's good. Curious animals are smart animals." For 3 weeks, Elena watched the Tekvar from far away. She learned that they lived in family groups called packs. Each pack had about 10 to 15 members. They hunted together and shared their food. The biggest and strongest one was the leader, called an alpha. Elena saw how they hunted. They would surround their prey and work together like a perfect machine. One group would drive the animal toward another group waiting and hiding. They never missed. They never failed. Elena understood why other aliens feared them so much. But Elena also saw something else. She saw the alpha comfort an injured pack member. She saw them playing with their young. She saw them mourning when one of their kind died. These were not just killing machines. They had feelings and family bonds. "Look at this," Elena told her team as she showed them a video. "The alpha is teaching the young ones how to hunt. See how patient it is? It shows them the same move 5 times until they get it right." Her team watched the screen with amazement. Most people in the galaxy thought the Tekvar were just monsters. But Elena saw intelligence and care in everything they did. Then the solar storm hit. Elena woke up to alarms screaming through the base. Red lights flashed everywhere. She ran to the control room where Marcus was typing fast on his computer. "What's happening?" she asked. "Solar storm," Marcus said without looking up. "It's huge. The electromagnetic pulse fried half our systems." Elena felt her heart sink. "What about the shields?" Marcus's face went pale. "They're down. All of them. The shields were what kept the Tekvar away. Without them, the base was just a small building on a hill." Elena looked out the window and saw shapes moving in the forest. The Tekvar knew something had changed. "How long until backup power comes online?" Elena asked. 6 hours, Marcus said. "Maybe 8. Elena felt scared, but she tried not to show it. She was the team leader. Everyone was looking to her for answers. She picked up her radio and called the other team members. "Everyone stay calm," she said. "Stay inside and away from the windows. Do not go outside for any reason." For 2 hours, nothing happened. Elena began to hope that maybe the Tekvar had not noticed the shield failure. Then she saw movement at the edge of the forest. A single Tekvar stepped out of the trees. Elena had never seen one this close before. It was enormous. Its fur was dark gray with silver streaks. Scars covered its face and body, telling the story of many battles. This was clearly an alpha, the leader of its pack. The creature stood at the bottom of the hill and looked up at the research station. Elena could see its intelligence in its bright yellow eyes. This was not a mindless beast. This was a thinking being making a decision. "Elena," Marcus whispered. "What do we do?" Elena watched as the alpha started walking up the hill toward their base. Its movement was slow and careful. It was not attacking. It was investigating. "Nobody move," Elena said softly. "I don't think it wants to hurt us." The alpha reached the base and began walking around it. Elena followed its movement through the windows. The creature was huge, but it moved with surprising grace. It sniffed the air and touched the walls with its paws. It was learning about them. Then the alpha stopped in front of the main window where Elena stood. For a long moment, human and alien looked at each other through the glass. Elena felt like the creature was looking into her soul. She could see intelligence in its eyes, but also something else. Curiosity. Elena did something that made her team gasp. She slowly raised her hand and placed it against the glass. The alpha tilted its head, watching her movement. Then very carefully it raised its own paw and placed it against the glass on the other side. For 30 seconds they stood like that. A human scientist and an alien predator, separated by just a thin piece of glass, trying to understand each other. Then the alpha stepped back. It looked at Elena one more time, as if remembering her face. It made a sound that was half growl, half something else. Then it turned and walked back down the hill. Elena watched as the alpha reached the forest edge. She expected it to disappear into the trees. Instead, it stopped and looked back at the research station. It made another sound, louder this time. From the forest came answers. More Thekvar appeared at the tree line. Elena counted 12 of them. The alpha's pack had been watching the whole time. The alpha made one more sound, and then all the Thekvar melted back into the forest. They were gone as quickly as they had appeared. Did that really just happen? Marcus asked. Elena was still staring at the spot where the alpha had stood. Something important had just occurred, but she was not sure what. The most dangerous predator on the planet had come to their base when they were helpless. It could have broken through their walls easily. Instead, it had looked at her with what seemed like curiosity and respect. "I think," Elena said slowly, "we just made first contact." That night, Elena could not sleep. She kept thinking about the alpha's eyes. There had been intelligence there, but also something that surprised her. The creature had seemed almost gentle. She went to her computer and started writing her report. How do you explain to the scientific community that the galaxy's most feared predator had shown restraint and curiosity instead of aggression? Outside her window, Elena thought she could see glowing eyes watching from the forest. The Thekvar were still there, still watching. But somehow Elena no longer felt afraid. Something had changed between the two species today. Elena did not know what would happen next, but she felt like they had crossed an important line. They were no longer just scientist and subject. They were two intelligent species who had acknowledged each other's existence. The real work was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the Alpha Thekvar visited their base. Elena's team had fixed their shields and settled into a routine of watching and learning. Every day, Elena made notes about Thekvar behavior. She was starting to understand their complex social structure. The Alpha that had visited them was special. Elena had started calling him Karen, after an ancient Earth mythological figure. Karen's pack was larger than the others, and other Thekvar packs seemed to respect him. He was not just an alpha of his own group. He was like a king among his species. Elena often saw Karen watching their base from the forest. Sometimes he came closer, always stopping at the same spot where he had first approached. He never tried to get past their shields again, but Elena could feel his intelligent gaze studying them. "He's learning about us," Elena told her team during their morning meeting, "just like we're learning about them." Dr. Sarah Chen, their technology expert, looked worried. "I still don't like how interested he is in us. These creatures are dangerous, Elena. We shouldn't forget that." Elena understood Sarah's concern, but she believed Karen was different. The way he had behaved during the shield failure showed intelligence and restraint. A simple predator would have attacked when they were vulnerable. That afternoon, Elena was reviewing her research when Marcus burst into her lab. "Elena, you need to see this," he said, his face excited and worried at the same time. Elena followed Marcus to the observation deck. He handed her a pair of binoculars and pointed toward the eastern valley. "There," he said, "about 2 kilometers out." Elena looked through the binoculars and gasped. In the distance she could see Karen, but something was very wrong. The massive alpha was lying on the ground, clearly in distress. Around him, his pack members paced back and forth, making distressed sounds. "What happened to him?" Elena asked. Marcus adjusted the telescope to get a better view. "I think he's caught in something. Look at that shimmer in the air around him." Elena looked closer and saw what Marcus meant. The air around Karen seemed to bend and twist, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. But this was not heat. This was something else entirely. "It's an energy field," Sarah said, joining them at the telescope. "Some kind of containment system." Elena studied the scene more carefully. Karen was trapped in what looked like an invisible cage made of energy. Every time he tried to move, bright sparks appeared around him. His pack members could not get close because the energy field extended several meters in all directions. "This is ancient technology," Sarah said, after scanning the area with their instruments. "The energy signature doesn't match anything we know. It must be from whoever lived on this planet before the Thekvar." Elena watched as Karen struggled weakly against his prison. The proud alpha who had once stood tall and strong was now barely able to lift his head. The energy field was slowly killing him. "We have to help him," Elena said. Her team stared at her in shock. "Elena, that's crazy," Marcus said. "He's a Thekvar. Even if we could help him, getting that close would be suicide. Look at him." Elena pointed at the telescope. "He's dying, and his pack can't do anything to save him." Elena watched as Karen's pack members tried desperately to reach their leader. They approached the energy field from different angles, but every time they got close, the field pushed them back with painful electrical shocks. Some of the smaller Thekvar were crying, making sounds Elena had never heard before. "I've been studying their behavior for months," Elena said. "Karen is not just their leader. He's their father, their protector, their guide. If he dies, the whole pack structure will collapse." Sarah shook her head. "Even if that's true, what can we do? We don't understand this technology." Elena was already moving toward the equipment room. "We understand energy fields. We use them for our shields. Maybe we can figure out how to disrupt this one." For the next 4 hours, Elena worked frantically with her team's technology. The ancient energy field was complex, but it followed certain rules of physics. Elena believed she could create a disruption pulse that would overload the field and shut it down. "This is our best chance," Elena said as she loaded the disruption device onto a hover cart. "The field is getting stronger. If we wait much longer, even shutting it down won't save him." Marcus grabbed her arm. "Elena, think about this. Even if we save him, we'll be right next to an injured apex predator. He might not understand that we helped him." Elena looked out toward the valley where Karen lay dying. His pack had not left his side. They stayed close to the energy field, calling to their alpha, trying to give him strength to keep fighting. "He'll understand," Elena said. "I have to believe that." The journey to the valley took an hour. Elena's team moved carefully, watching for other Thekvar that might see them as a threat. As they got closer to the energy field, they could hear Karen's labored breathing. The Alpha's pack saw them coming. 12 massive predators turned to watch the approaching humans. Elena expected them to attack or at least growl threateningly. Instead, they simply watched with what looked like desperate hope. "They know we're here to help," Elena whispered to her team. Elena set up the disruption device 50 meters from the energy field. The ancient technology was even more complex up close. The field pulsed and shifted constantly, adjusting its pattern to keep Karen trapped. "I need to recalibrate the pulse frequency," Elena said, working quickly on her equipment. "This field is adaptive. It's learning how to counter any disruption attempts." While Elena worked, she could feel the pack watching her every move. These creatures could have killed all the humans in seconds, but they stood perfectly still, as if they understood that the small beings were trying to save their leader. Karen raised his head slightly and looked at Elena. Even through his pain, she could see recognition in his eyes. He remembered her from their encounter at the base. "Almost got it," Elena muttered, making final adjustments to the device. The disruption pulse had to be perfect. Too weak and it would not affect the field. Too strong and it might kill Karen. Elena activated the device. A wave of energy shot from the human equipment toward the ancient field. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air around Karen began to shimmer and shake. The energy field flickered like a broken light. Suddenly, there was a bright flash and a sound like thunder. The energy field collapsed. Karen fell to the ground, free but barely conscious. Elena ran toward him before her team could stop her. The massive Alpha was severely injured. His breathing was shallow, and his electromagnetic organs were badly damaged. Elena knelt beside the fallen predator. Karen's pack surrounded them, but they did not interfere. They watched as the small human began examining their leader's injuries. "His electromagnetic system is overloaded," Elena called to her team. "I need the medical kit." Elena had studied Thekvar physiology for months. She knew their basic anatomy and how their unique electromagnetic organs worked. She began treating Karen's injuries with modified human medical equipment. As she worked, Elena felt a strange sense of connection with the injured Alpha. He was conscious enough to watch her, and she could see trust in his eyes. This creature, who could have killed her with one swipe of his paw, was allowing her to help him. The treatment took 2 hours. Elena used everything she knew about electromagnetic systems and alien biology. Slowly, Karen's breathing became stronger. His electromagnetic organs began functioning normally again. When Elena finished, she sat back exhausted. The effort had drained all her energy. Karen slowly lifted his head and looked at her. For a moment, human and alien stared at each other. Then Karen did something that made Elena's team gasp in amazement. The massive predator gently touched Elena's hand with his paw. It was a gesture of gratitude and recognition. Elena smiled tiredly. "You're welcome," she whispered. Karen's pack surrounded their recovered leader, but they did not forget Elena. Each of them approached her and touched her gently with their paws before helping Karen to his feet. As the pack disappeared into the forest, Elena realized that something fundamental had changed. She had risked everything to save an alien predator, and he had accepted her help with complete trust. The relationship between human and Thekvar would never be the same. After Elena saved Karen from the energy trap, everything changed. The massive Alpha began visiting the research base almost every day. He would sit at the edge of the shield barrier, watching the humans work. Sometimes he would bring other pack members with him, but he always came close alone. Elena started leaving the base to meet with Karen face to face. Her team thought she was crazy, but Elena felt safe with the Alpha. He had shown her more respect and gentleness than many humans she had known. "He's learning our language," Elena told her team as she reviewed her notes. "Look at these recordings. He responds correctly to basic words like food, water, and safe." Marcus watched a video of Elena talking with Karen. "It's incredible, but I'm still worried. One mistake, one misunderstanding, and he could kill you without meaning to." Elena understood the concern, but she also understood Karen. The Alpha was intelligent enough to control his strength around her. When he wanted to show her something, he would gently touch her arm with one claw. When he was happy, his electromagnetic organs would pulse with soft light. The bond between Elena and Karen grew stronger each day. Elena began to understand the Thekvar's complex communication system. They used sounds, body language, and electromagnetic pulses to talk to each other. It was like a three-dimensional language that humans had never seen before. Elena also learned about Thekvar emotions. They felt love, fear, joy, and sadness just like humans did. When young Thekvar played, their parents watched with the same proud expressions Elena had seen on human parents. When pack members were hurt, others would comfort them with gentle touches and soft sounds. "They're not monsters," Elena wrote in her research journal. "They're people. Different from us, but people nonetheless." One morning, Elena noticed that Karen seemed troubled. His electromagnetic organs pulsed with colors she had never seen before. His body language showed stress and worry. "What's wrong?" Elena asked him, using the simple Thekvar words she had learned. Karen made a low sound and began walking toward the forest. He stopped and looked back at Elena, clearly wanting her to follow. Elena had never gone deep into Thekvar territory before, but she trusted Karen completely. Elena told her team where she was going and followed Karen into the forest. The Alpha led her through paths that only the Thekvar knew. Other pack members joined them along the way, but they kept their distance from Elena, showing respect for her special relationship with their leader. After an hour of walking, Karen brought Elena to a clearing she had never seen before. In the center of the clearing stood ancient ruins, buildings made of the same strange material as the energy trap that had nearly killed Karen. "More ruins from the previous civilization," Elena said to herself. She pulled out her scanner and began recording everything she saw. Karen led her closer to the ruins. Elena could see that the buildings were covered with symbols and patterns. Some of the patterns looked like mathematical equations. Others looked like star maps. This had been built by a highly advanced species, but something was wrong with the ruins. Elena's scanner showed high levels of dangerous radiation coming from the ancient buildings. The radiation was not strong enough to hurt humans immediately, but it was having a terrible effect on the Thekvar. Elena watched as Karen showed her the bodies of several young Thekvar near the ruins. They had died recently, and Elena's scanner showed that radiation poisoning was the cause. "Oh no," Elena whispered as she began to understand. Elena spent the rest of the day examining the ruins and testing the radiation levels. The ancient civilization had left behind technology that was slowly poisoning the Tekvar. The radiation was affecting their reproductive systems, making it harder for them to have healthy babies. That evening, Elena returned to the base with terrible news for her team. The Tekvar are dying out, she told them. The radiation from these ancient ruins is sterilizing them. Each generation has fewer babies, and most of those babies don't survive. Sarah looked at Elena's data with growing horror. How long do they have? Elena checked her calculations again. At the current rate of decline, the Tekvar will be extinct within 50 years. Maybe less. Marcus sat down heavily. That's why Karen showed you the ruins. He knows his species is dying, and he thinks you might be able to help. Elena realized that Marcus was right. Karen had not just been sharing information with her. He had been asking for help. The Alpha understood that humans had technology that Tekvar did not possess. He was hoping Elena could find a solution to save his people. For the next 2 weeks, Elena worked day and night to understand the radiation problem. The ancient technology was incredibly complex, but Elena began to see patterns in how it worked. It's not just radiation, Elena explained to her team. It's a specific type of electromagnetic interference that targets Tekvar biology. The ancient civilization designed this as a weapon against the Tekvar's ancestors. Elena discovered that the ancient ruins were part of a planet-wide network. Hundreds of similar sites existed across the planet, all producing the same deadly radiation. The previous civilization had tried to wipe out the Tekvar completely, but they had failed. The Tekvar had survived, but the radiation was slowly winning the ancient war. I think I can neutralize it, Elena said after days of complex calculations. Human biotechnology works differently from Tekvar biology. I can create a treatment that will protect them from the radiation effects. But there was a problem. To create the treatment, Elena needed to test it on actual Tekvar genetic material. She needed access to Tekvar DNA, blood samples, and reproductive cells. Most importantly, she needed to test the treatment on a living Tekvar to make sure it worked safely. Elena explained the problem to Karen during one of their meetings. The Alpha listened carefully as Elena used simple words and drawings to show him what she needed. Karen understood immediately. He knew that Elena was asking him to trust her with the most precious thing his people had, their biological future. The treatment might save them, or it might kill them faster. For several days, Karen disappeared. Elena waited anxiously, wondering if she had asked for too much trust. When Karen finally returned, he brought other Alphas with him. Elena counted 6 different pack leaders, representing most of the Tekvar groups on the planet. The Alphas held a meeting that lasted for hours. Elena watched from a distance as they communicated in their complex 3-dimensional language. Electromagnetic pulses flashed between them like colorful lightning. Finally, the meeting ended. Karen approached Elena alone. He made a series of sounds and gestures that Elena had learned meant agreement and trust. The Tekvar Council had made their decision. They would allow Elena to try to save them. Over the next week, Karen and his pack provided Elena with everything she needed for her research. They gave her blood samples, genetic material, and detailed information about their biology. They answered every question Elena asked, even when it meant revealing their most private biological secrets. Elena worked frantically to develop the radiation treatment. She combined human biotechnology with her understanding of Tekvar physiology. The treatment was complex, requiring precise genetic modifications that would protect Tekvar DNA from radiation damage. Finally, Elena created what she believed was a working treatment. But it was untested. She had no way to know if it would work without trying it on a living Tekvar. Elena met with Karen to explain that the treatment was ready for testing. She tried to make him understand the risks. The treatment might cure the radiation effects, but it might also have unexpected side effects. It might even be deadly. Karen listened to everything Elena said. Then he made a decision that showed the depth of trust between them. He offered himself as the test subject. Elena was shocked. No, she said in Tekvar language. Too dangerous. Test on me first, but Karen was determined. He was the Alpha, the leader of his people. If the treatment was going to be tested on anyone, it would be tested on him. He would not ask his pack to take risks he was not willing to take himself. Elena realized that arguing with Karen would be useless. The Alpha had made his decision based on honor and leadership principles that Elena respected. If she was going to save the Thekvar, she would have to trust Karen's courage just as he trusted her knowledge. Elena prepared the treatment with shaking hands. Tomorrow she would either save the Thekvar species or accidentally kill their greatest leader. The weight of an entire civilization rested on her shoulders, but as Elena looked at Karen, she saw complete trust in his eyes. He believed in her abilities even when she doubted herself. That trust gave Elena the strength she needed to continue. The future of two species now depended on the bond between a human scientist and an alien predator who had learned to trust each other completely. The morning of the treatment test arrived gray and cold. Elena had barely slept, running through every possible outcome in her mind. She checked her equipment one final time while Karen waited patiently nearby. Elena had decided to conduct the test at the research base, where she had access to all her medical equipment. If something went wrong, she would need every tool available to save Karen's life. The Alpha had agreed, showing once again his complete trust in Elena's judgment. Marcus and Sarah stood ready to assist, though Elena could see the worry in their faces. They were about to watch their colleague inject an experimental treatment into the galaxy's most dangerous predator. If Karen had a bad reaction and became violent, there would be no way to stop him. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked Elena one last time. Elena looked at Karen, who was calmly lying on the modified examination table they had built for him. The massive Alpha showed no fear, only patience and trust. "He's sure," Elena said. "That's enough for me." Elena prepared the injection carefully. The treatment consisted of modified human cellular repair nanobots programmed to work with Thekvar biology. These tiny machines would enter Karen's bloodstream and begin repairing the radiation damage to his DNA. The injection itself was surprisingly simple. Elena found a major blood vessel in Karen's forearm and inserted the needle. The Alpha did not even flinch. Elena slowly pushed the treatment into his bloodstream and then stepped back to wait. For the first hour, nothing happened. Karen's vital signs remained normal. His electromagnetic organs pulsed with their usual steady rhythm. Elena began to hope that the treatment was working without causing harmful side effects. Then Karen's electromagnetic organs began to change color. "Elena," Sarah said urgently, watching the monitors. "His electromagnetic activity is increasing rapidly." Elena checked her instruments. Karen's electromagnetic organs were producing energy patterns she had never seen before. The colors were brighter and more complex than normal Thekvar communication signals. "Is he in pain?" Marcus asked. Elena studied Karen's behavior carefully. The Alpha was alert and calm. His breathing was normal. He did not seem to be in distress. If anything, he seemed more energetic than before. "I think the nanobots are working," Elena said. "They're repairing his electromagnetic organs. The increased activity might be a sign that damaged systems are coming back online." For 6 hours, Elena monitored Karen's condition. Slowly, his electromagnetic activity settled into new patterns that were more complex and powerful than before. Blood tests showed that the radiation damage to his DNA was being repaired at an incredible rate. "It's working," Elena whispered, hardly daring to believe it. "The treatment is actually working." Karen seemed to understand Elena's excitement. He made soft sounds that Elena had learned meant happiness and gratitude. The Alpha's electromagnetic organs pulsed with gentle, warm colors, but the real test would come later. The treatment was designed to protect Thekvar reproductive systems from radiation damage. Elena would not know if it truly worked until Karen tried to have offspring. Elena did not have to wait long to find out. 3 days after Karen's treatment, he disappeared into the forest with his mate. Elena knew that this was the critical moment. If the treatment had worked, Karen and his mate might be able to produce healthy offspring. If it had failed, they would face the same disappointment that Thekvar couples had been experiencing for generations. Elena waited anxiously for news. She continued working on treatments for other Thekvar, but her mind was always on Karen and his mate. The future of an entire species depended on what happened in the forest. 2 weeks later, Karen returned to the research base. Elena could immediately see that something was different. The Alpha's electromagnetic organs pulsed with colors Elena had never seen before, complex patterns that seemed to express joy and pride. Karen approached Elena and made a series of sounds and gestures. Elena's heart raced as she translated his message. Karen's mate was pregnant. For the first time in 3 years, their pack would have a new member. He did it. Elena told her team with tears in her eyes. The treatment worked. They're going to have a baby. But Elena's joy was mixed with concern. Pregnancy was only the first step. HFY females had been losing their babies during pregnancy or shortly after birth. Elena would not know if the treatment had truly succeeded until the baby was born healthy and strong. The next few weeks were the longest of Elena's life. She visited Karen's pack regularly to monitor the pregnancy. Elena used her medical scanners to check on the developing baby, and everything looked normal. The radiation damage that had been killing HFY offspring for generations was not affecting this pregnancy. Elena also began treating other HFY with the same nanobots she had used on Karen. Alpha after alpha came to her for treatment, showing the same trust that Karan had demonstrated. Word was spreading through the HFY community that the human had found a way to heal their species. Finally, the day arrived when Karen's mate went into labor. Elena was not present for the birth. That was too private a moment for the HFY family. But Karen came to get her as soon as the baby was born. Elena followed Karen deep into the forest to a hidden cave where his pack lived. As they approached the cave, Elena could hear something she had never heard before: the sounds of a healthy HFY baby. Inside the cave, Elena saw Karen's mate lying protectively around a small bundle of fur. The baby was tiny compared to adult HFY, but it was clearly strong and healthy. Its electromagnetic organs glowed with bright, pure colors. Elena ran her medical scanners over the baby from a respectful distance. Everything looked perfect. The baby showed no signs of radiation damage. Its genetic structure was completely normal. The treatment had worked. But as Elena watched the new family, she realized that an even more important moment was about to occur. Karen approached her while his mate watched carefully. The massive alpha was carrying his newborn child. Elena held her breath as Karen walked toward her. She understood the significance of what was happening. In HFY culture, only the most trusted individuals were allowed to touch a newborn. Karen was about to honor Elena in a way that no human had ever been honored before. Karen stopped in front of Elena and made a soft sound. Then very gently he placed his newborn child in Elena's arms. Elena felt the weight of the tiny HFY baby and almost cried. This moment represented everything she had worked for: the trust between species, the scientific breakthrough, and the hope for the future all came together as she held new life in her arms. The baby opened its eyes and looked at Elena. Its electromagnetic organs pulsed with curious, innocent light. Elena smiled and made soft human sounds that seemed to comfort the infant. Around the cave, Karen's entire pack watched in absolute silence. What they were witnessing had never happened before in HFY history. Their alpha was entrusting their species' future to an alien being, but it was more than trust. Elena realized that Karen was making a statement to his pack and to the wider HFY community. He was declaring that humans were no longer outsiders or potential threats. Elena had become family. Elena carefully handed the baby back to its mother, who accepted the child with grateful sounds. As Elena prepared to leave the cave, Karen made one more gesture that took her breath away. The massive alpha bowed his head to Elena in a gesture of deep respect and gratitude. Around the cave, every member of his pack did the same. Elena bowed in return, honoring the trust they had placed in her. As Elena walked back to the research base that evening, she knew that everything had changed. The baby she had held represented not just hope for the HFY species, but a new relationship between humans and aliens. Elena had proven that different species could work together to solve problems that neither could solve alone. The HFY had provided trust and biological samples. Elena had provided knowledge and technology. Together they had saved a dying species. But Elena also knew that the hardest work was still ahead. One healthy baby was just the beginning. Elena would need to treat hundreds of HFY to ensure their species' survival, and she would need to find ways to neutralize the ancient radiation sources that were still poisoning the planet. Most importantly, Elena realized that she had become the bridge between two species. The trust that Karen had shown by placing his baby in her arms was now her responsibility to protect and nurture. The future of human-HFY relations rested in Elena's hands, just as the HFY baby had rested in her arms that day. The news of the successful HFY birth spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Elena's research team had sent their reports to the scientific community, and the response was overwhelming. Scientists, diplomats, and military leaders all wanted to know more about the human who had saved an alien species. Elena found herself at the center of galactic attention, but she was too busy to care about fame. Charon's baby was healthy and growing, but there were hundreds of other Thekvar who still needed treatment. Elena had proven that her nanobots could work, but now she had to scale up production to treat an entire species. The baby, whom Charon's pack had named Zephyr, became a symbol of hope for all Thekvar. Other packs began traveling from across the planet to see the healthy child and to request treatment from Elena. Every day, new Thekvar families arrived at the research base. Elena worked 18 hours a day, treating Thekvar after Thekvar with her radiation repair nanobots. Each treatment was successful, and Elena began to see real changes in the Thekvar population. Adults became healthier and stronger. Females who had been unable to have children for years began getting pregnant. But Elena also faced new challenges. The demand for treatment was overwhelming, and she could not produce nanobots fast enough to help everyone. She needed more resources and more help. That help came from an unexpected source. 3 months after Zephyr's birth, a fleet of ships arrived at Kepler 442c. Elena expected to see human vessels bringing supplies and reinforcements. Instead, she saw ships from a dozen different alien species. Elena met with the delegation leaders in the research base's expanded conference room. Representatives from the Altarian Federation, the Centauri Republic, and even the usually isolationist vegan collective had all come to see the human who had achieved the impossible. Dr. Vasquez, said Ambassador Thren of the Altarians, "Your work with the Thekvar has implications far beyond this planet. You have demonstrated that cooperation between species can solve problems that no single civilization could handle alone." Elena was honored by the recognition, but she was also practical. "I appreciate your words, Ambassador. But right now I need help producing enough nanobots to treat the remaining Thekvar population." The galactic community responded with resources Elena had never dreamed of. Advanced manufacturing equipment, rare materials, and teams of expert scientists arrived to help with the treatment program. Within weeks, Elena's small research base had become a major medical facility. But the most important help came from the Thekvar themselves. Charon had been watching Elena struggle to treat his people, and he understood that she needed assistance. The Alpha made a decision that shocked everyone, including Elena. Charon began organizing Thekvar work teams to help with the treatment program. Thekvar pack members learned to operate human equipment under Elena's guidance. They helped prepare nanobots, assisted with medical procedures, and even helped build new facilities. For the first time in galactic history, humans and Thekvar were working together as equals. Elena watched in amazement as Charon's pack members carefully measured chemicals for nanobots' production. Their electromagnetic organs provided precision that human instruments could not match. Their natural intelligence allowed them to learn complex procedures quickly. "They're not just patients anymore," Elena told Marcus as they watched Thekvar and humans working side by side. "They're partners." The partnership between humans and Thekvar produced results faster than anyone had expected. Within 6 months, every Thekvar on the planet had received treatment. The radiation damage was being repaired and healthy births were becoming common again. But Elena knew that treating the symptoms was not enough. The ancient radiation sources were still active across the planet. Unless those sources were neutralized, future generations of Thekvar would face the same problems. Elena proposed an ambitious project to the Galactic Council. She wanted to build a network of neutralization devices that would permanently disable the ancient radiation sources. The project would require technology and resources from multiple species, but it would ensure that the Thekvar would never again face extinction from radiation poisoning. The project was approved, and work began immediately. Human engineers designed the neutralization devices. Altarian technicians provided advanced power systems. Centauri archaeologists helped locate and understand the ancient technology, and Thekvar work teams helped install the devices across their planet. The neutralization project took 2 years to complete. Elena spent those years working closely with Charon and his people, learning more about their culture and society. She discovered that the Thekvar had rich traditions of art, philosophy, and science that the galaxy had never known about. Elena also watched Zephyr grow into a healthy, intelligent young Thekvar. The child had become a bridge between species, as comfortable with humans as with his own kind. Zephyr learned to speak both human languages and Thekvar communication, making him one of the first truly bilingual members of his species. When the neutralization network was finally activated, Elena stood with Karen on a hill overlooking the research base. Across the planet, hundreds of devices powered up simultaneously, sending waves of energy that neutralized the ancient radiation sources forever. "It's finished," Elena said to Karen. "Your people are safe." Karen made a sound that Elena had learned meant deep gratitude and satisfaction. Then he did something that surprised Elena. The massive Alpha gently picked up a small object from the ground and handed it to her. It was a piece of crystalline bone that had fallen from Karen's own body during his healing process. Elena realized that Karen was giving her a piece of himself as a permanent symbol of their bond. Elena accepted the gift with ceremony, understanding its significance. In Thekvar culture, giving someone a piece of your own body was the ultimate expression of trust and family connection. "Thank you," Elena said, holding the crystal carefully. "I will treasure this always." The ceremony was interrupted by excited sounds from the research base below. Elena and Karen looked down to see a crowd of humans and Thekvar gathered around the communication center. Elena and Karen hurried down to see what was happening. Marcus met them at the entrance with a huge smile on his face. "Elena, you need to hear this," Marcus said, leading her to the communication console. "It's a message from the Galactic Council." Elena listened as the council's chairman spoke through the communicator. Her work with the Thekvar had been selected as the most significant scientific achievement of the century. But more importantly, the council was establishing a new program based on Elena's methods. The program would send mixed species teams to planets where different civilizations were facing problems they could not solve alone. Humans would provide scientific knowledge and diplomatic skills. Other species would contribute their own unique abilities and perspectives. "Dr. Vasquez," the chairman said, "your work has shown us that cooperation between species is not just possible, but necessary for solving the great challenges facing our galaxy. We would like you to lead this new initiative." Elena looked at Karen, who was listening to a Thekvar translation of the message. The Alpha made sounds of approval and encouragement. "I accept," Elena said, "but I have one condition. This program must include Thekvar representatives. They have proven themselves to be valuable partners, and their unique abilities could help solve problems on other worlds." The council agreed immediately. The Thekvar would become the first species to join the new cooperative program. As Elena prepared for her new role, she reflected on everything that had happened since she first arrived on Kepler 442c. She had come to study dangerous predators and had ended up saving a dying species. She had expected to maintain scientific distance and had instead formed bonds that would last forever. Elena watched Zephyr playing with young humans who had arrived with their families. The children were learning each other's languages and games, growing up together without the fear and misunderstanding that had separated their species in the past. Karan approached Elena as she watched the children play. The Alpha made a complex series of sounds and electromagnetic pulses that Elena had learned was the Thekvar equivalent of a formal speech. Elena listened as Karen spoke about trust, cooperation, and the future of their two species. He spoke about the day he had placed his newborn child in Elena's arms and how that moment had changed everything for his people. Finally, Karen spoke about Elena herself. In the Thekvar language, he gave her a new name that meant bridge builder and life giver. It was a title of honor that would be remembered in Thekvar history for generations. Elena bowed formally to Karen, accepting the honor with the dignity it deserved. That evening, Elena sat in her laboratory writing her final report about the Thekvar project. She tried to capture everything that had happened, but she knew that no report could fully describe the transformation that had occurred. Elena had not just saved a species from extinction. She had proven that the barriers between different forms of life could be overcome through patience, respect, and trust. The galaxy was vast and full of different peoples, but Elena had shown that those differences could be sources of strength rather than sources of conflict. As Elena finished her report, she heard sounds outside her laboratory.